Hello everybody, this is Yasmin from Yarkspiri and welcome to another illustration video tutorial. So for this week's tutorial, one of you guys actually requested that I draw a spider queen. Now there was quite a few more details included in this request. Obviously since this is a spider queen, she needs to have some form of dominance to her. Now, other parts were that she would be in a cavern with a greenish hue to essentially symbolize the toxicity of the environment, and that she have a human-like upper portion of the body as well. Now, taking these elements and putting them together, if you look at a lot of concept art that already is out there, a lot of it does tend to have more of a beautiful female upper torso with essentially a spider-like body to it. Now, because I wanted to take a slightly different approach on this, and since I wanted to actually literally make this a queen, I decided to actually make her obese and as grotesque as I could try to make her. The reason for this approach was that I approach her almost like an ant in an ant colony. The queen ant in a colony tends to be larger than the rest of the ants in the colony. Now for this reason I made her very large, she's very fertile, and she's surrounded by essentially her offspring in larva form. So this helps really showcase that she is essentially the dominant role in this environment. She's very central to its survival, and she is in effect the queen and the part that essentially is the backbone essentially of this hive-like atmosphere. So although I was approaching it in this fashion, I did want to have somewhat of an intellectual part to her. So although she is the queen, she has some form of intelligence. She's holding the staff, so she does have quite a bit of power to her. So she isn't just essentially a Black Widow type spider, where essentially she's trying to lure in the males to use as her victims. In this case, she doesn't care particularly about her prey or what her offspring will eat, as long as they're fed, because she's essentially trying to push out as many little wiggly spider hatchlings as she can. So by taking this approach, I was able to really come up with something that I first of all really had a lot of fun doing, and come out with something that was a little bit different than what you typically see. So as you can see, this affected a significant portion of the design elements in this painting because I decided to approach it in such a different manner. Now, because she is a spider, I did want to include some form of elements of that silk or web-like material. So essentially her cloth is actually made from spider web-like material, and you'll see later on how I paint that is I tend to use a lot of textured brushes, and I'll use a very fine brush, but then what I had to do is I had to apply a blur effect to it because the information was just too harsh in relation to the rest of her body. So to prevent from drawing away too much attention to her central body and figure, I made sure to essentially add a blur effect to bring back some of those details so that it wasn't too distracting. Now, as you can see, I'm still working on the legs of the spider. At this point, I am using most definitely several forms of reference material to figure out how I'm actually going to go and essentially render those elements. Now, although I did want to make it somewhat realistic to a spider, I did want to add some of my own elements, so I actually ended up breaking essentially the subdivisions that I already have for the joints of the spider legs, and later on you'll actually see me add essentially a groove and indents to help break up that information. So right now I started adding in some of the grooves, as you can see, and I'm just slowly adding that information to help make it stand out. Now, because these two legs are in the forefront, I do have to add a lot more detail and information than in the rest of the legs. Also in her face, you can see that I've actually added several different layers of little mandibles and multiple eyes to help reinforce the spider-like features in her facial features. But with all this, she's still wearing a crown and she still has some clothing elements to her. Once again, to help show that she does have some form of intelligence. She does belong to a sentient species that are essentially the top of their food chain. So I really wanted to show this intelligence, and the best way to do it is to show that, first of all, they do have some form of culture, and they're able to produce things like clothing, and actually produce some form of functional material that can be worn. So as you can see, I just started adding in some of the strands. I will go in, and like I said before, I will add a blur effect to it just to help tone back some of those elements to keep it from being too overpowering. I'm just working on the crown, as you can see. I'm keeping the information very simple. I don't want to add too much information into that crown. It's not a focal point. But I do need to add enough information so that it looks like it does belong to this image. Just adding some additional striping effect, showing how essentially she has very strong bright colors, which normally means that it's from a species of spider that is extremely deadly. Most animals in the animal kingdom like to warn potential predators that they are poisonous to prevent, well, first of all, to increase their survival, but also to prevent any overuse of any venom that they may have. Just working on the chest and just bumping up some of those contrast elements in those grooves for those legs. And I'm tying in that element to the rest of the body and adding it into some of the background legs as well. Now I wanted to punch up some of the colors in the face, so I'm just adding some additional colors right now and working up the contrast in that crown. So now that that's done, I can actually work on the cave elements. And once again, like I said before, she is surrounded by her larva, so she's laid all these eggs for herself. And as you can see, that would make a fairly formidable army. So she's definitely the dominant species of her environment. So she's sentient and she's able to reproduce extremely quickly. Very similar to ants. Bumping up the contrast in certain key areas and adding some additional highlights. It's really important that I make sure that the lighting looks appropriate. I want to show that the larvae have some form of sliminess to them, but I need to force it to recede as well. So as in the past couple of weeks, unfortunately I do have a backlog of requests, so I won't be taking any requests as of yet, but once I do start taking some, I will let you guys know. And I will bring about a voting system, so if you want a very specific illustration drawn, you will need to vote on it to make sure that your topic or those elements actually get drawn out into an illustration. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.